Heather Tom remembers Victoria and Ryan's The Young and the Restless love. It was a match made in Newman Enterprises' heaven, the boss daughter and the mailroom employee. Back in the 90s on The Young and the Restless, the chemistry between Scott Reeves, Ryan, and Heather Tom, Victoria, was electric. So was their romance, which was Victoria's first real love. Even though they wed, divorced, and almost remarried before Ryan's death, there was an enduring bond there. Related, The Bold and the Beautiful's Heather Tom explains turning down Yale and Juilliard offers. 3.5 decades after debuting as Victoria on Wiener, Tom looked back on some of her character's great soap loves. That includes the Ryan and Vicky story. She recalled to People. Victoria was 16, and he was older. It was just a Romeo and Juliet storyline. People still come up to me and talk about how much they love that story, and it was really well constructed. I had so much fun doing it. Victoria's most recent love interest on Wiener was actually another former husband of hers, Cole J. Eddie Peck. The Newman heiress, now played by Amelia Heinle, bonded with Cole over their daughter Claire, Haley Aaron, until the professor's untimely death. This story was originally published by Daytime Confidential on December 3, 2025, where it first appeared in the Young and the Restless section. Add Daytime Confidential as a preferred source by clicking here. Heather Tom had always believed that certain stories stayed with an actor long after the cameras stopped rolling, weaving themselves into the folds of memory with a permanence that felt almost indistinguishable from real life. For her, the love story of Victoria Newman and Ryan McNeil was one of those stories, bright, aching, complicated, and unforgettable. Years had passed since she'd first stepped onto The Young and the Restless soundstage as a teen, nervous and exhilarated, clutching her script as if it were a lifeline. Back then, she'd been unaware of just how deeply Victoria's journey, particularly her relationship with Ryan, would shape her not only as an actress, but as a storyteller. It was late afternoon when she found herself wandering through old photos and production stills, each glossy image a tiny time capsule. She sank into her living room sofa, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips as she held up a picture of Victoria and Ryan standing together, his hand on her shoulder, her eyes lifted toward him with that unmistakable combination of trust and yearning. She could still feel that moment. She could still inhabit it. "Funny how they stay with you," she murmured softly, tracing the edge of the photograph with her thumb. And with that thought, she let herself fall backward into memory. The beginning, a story that wasn't meant to happen. When Heather had first started playing Victoria, the character was written as a fiercely guarded young woman, smart, stubborn, aching to prove herself, and desperate to be taken seriously in a world dominated by power players. Ryan McNeil, played by the charismatic and effortlessly grounded Scott Reeves, wasn't originally meant to become Victoria's great love. Their stories simply weren't designed to collide that way. But then the scenes began. And something unexpected happened. Heather remembered the first time she'd noticed it, the unusual ease between them during a rehearsal, the electricity beneath the banter, the way Scott's Ryan softened when Victoria dropped her defensive facade for just one vulnerable heartbeat. Their dynamic felt raw and real, like two characters who were never supposed to belong to each other, but somehow did. "It's always the unplanned ones," she whispered now, the hint of nostalgia warming her voice. The writers must have seen it too, because soon, Victoria and Ryan's paths were crossing more frequently. Victoria, this young woman who so often built walls of iron, found someone who saw her not as a Newman, not as a pawn in corporate chess, but as a person. And Ryan, despite his complicated past, became her unlikely anchor. Heather remembered the way fans responded. Letters poured in, full of enthusiasm, heartbreak, hope. Viewers saw pieces of themselves in the couple, two people trying to navigate love while dragging years of wounds behind them. She had felt so lucky to help bring that story to life. Shooting the early romantic scenes. Heather laughed softly at the memory of one of their earliest romantic scenes, the one where Victoria, finally admitting she cared for Ryan, tried to hide behind her typical stubborn bravado. She had flubbed her lines twice. Scott had teased her that maybe Victoria was just terrified of her own feelings. And she had thrown a pillow at him for that. But when the cameras rolled, something clicked into place. The room quieted. Their voices softened. Victoria let the guard down just enough for Ryan to reach her. The scene became iconic among the fanbase, not because it was grand, but because it was tender in a way Victoria rarely allowed herself to be. Heather remembered thinking, "This is the magic of storytelling. The alchemy of two characters teaching each other how to love, how to trust, how to grow. Darkness, conflict, and strength." But every soap love story had storm clouds, and Victoria and Ryan had their share. The more invested Heather became, the harder it sometimes was to film the heartbreaks. She had always cared deeply about Victoria, defending her even in her messiest decisions, and the thought of hurting the character, or being hurt through her, felt unexpectedly personal. One storyline in particular stayed with her, Victoria struggling to believe that Ryan loved her despite the chaos surrounding them. The tension was thick, emotional, draining. Heather sighed, remembering the heaviness of those days on set. "The stakes always felt so high," she whispered. Ryan's patience, his unwavering affection, felt like the antidote to Victoria's fear. And when things fell apart, as they inevitably did in Genoa City, they shattered beautifully, catastrophically, with the kind of emotional depth that made actors grateful for every page of the script. Scott, ever the supportive scene partner, always checked in after difficult moments. "You good?" "Yeah." "You?" "Yeah." "That was rough, but we nailed it." Those small exchanges softened the blow of the on-screen heartache. The wedding, a memory imprinted forever. Heather's smile brightened as she pulled out a still from Victoria and Ryan's wedding. Despite all the turmoil leading up to it, the ceremony had become one of her favorite days on set. The gown was stunning, timeless, elegant, fitted with delicate lace that shimmered beneath the studio lights. She remembered standing at the top of the aisle, heart pounding just a little faster than she'd expected. Not as Victoria, not as Heather, but as both. Because this scene felt like the culmination of years of layered storytelling, character growth, and emotional investment. The way Ryan looked at Victoria in that moment had been so full of warmth and quiet admiration that even the camera crew had paused afterward to wipe their eyes. The actors weren't simply hitting marks or saying lines, they were living inside the story, honoring what these two characters meant to each other.